Apex Legends is almost 5 years old, and honestly, it's still my favorite game. The gunplay, movement, the weapons, and legends, I mean, all of them have such a unique feel, and anytime I play another game, I'm instantly so appreciative of so many of the little things that Apex has to offer. With that said, Apex is kind of in a tough spot right now. Viewership's down, concurrent players are down, and a lot of people are telling me that they're just bored of the game. So I asked you all what you'd like to see added to the game, and a lot of the things that were mentioned are things I was thinking of as well. So here are 15 things that Apex should consider adding to their game, basically as soon as possible. Number 1, an improved rank system. I've covered this more in depth in a fairly recent video, and I've always tried to be extremely upfront about how I feel about the rank system and how it's missed the mark over the last year or so. Ultimately, this system is in dire need of a revamp currently. Simply put, the removal of the hidden MMR should be the first thing they do. This would hopefully then adjust the matchmaking as well. I think the system needs to honestly reflect skill and not just time spent playing. There also could be a better and more transparent point structure, as things right now are incredibly vague besides placement points, and that has just enticed too many players to rat and abuse exploits in order to try to rank up. Number 2, better ranked rewards. This is also something that Ranked has been in need of for a while now. Now, they removed the dive trails a few seasons ago and said it was because it clouded the drops, and that because they noticed players didn't always equip them, sometimes resulting in them being targeted. However, they conveniently then started attaching dive trails to their legend prestige heirloom skins in order to entice players to buy them. Now, specifically, the trail that came with the Revenant prestige skin looks way too close to a Predator trail. Now, personally, I do not like this move, and I also feel like there just has to be more rewards that players could get besides just a badge and a banner frame. I mean, this is a significant time investment if you want to try and reach a high rank, and I think players should be rewarded for that. Number 3, a weapon progression overhaul. I love the fact that they added a weapon progression system. However, I don't necessarily think it reflects you mastering a weapon. Some of the challenges seem really funny and just outlandish, to be honest. Like, the Prowler's first trial is to kill 5 Prowlers in a match 20-something times. This does not reflect a player being good with the gun whatsoever. And then on the contrary, there are also some challenges that are just way too easy or incredibly arbitrary, like killing a player after they kill your teammate. You have to do that 15 or 20 times with the Nemesis. I don't love this system, and there should be some skins that are attached for spending all of this time mastering the weapons. And also, I can't leave this last part out because it really irks me, but you get the most amount of points by just having the weapon held, and that makes no sense. This should really be focused more on damage, headshots, kills, and knocks. I mean, running with your weapon out is totally counterintuitive to how we're supposed to be playing Apex a lot of the times. We're supposed to holster our weapons so we can run and move faster, but they're giving us the most points for just running with our gun out or just holding the gun. Seems awfully silly. Number 4, they could add a legend progression system similar to the weapon version, but hopefully an updated version of the weapon one. I think it would be awesome to see a player who has mastered a legend beyond just seeing their trackers and seeing maybe that they have a high amount of kills. This could be pretty straightforward, right? You know, let's take Fuse for example. Get 20 knocks with his knuckle cluster. Something like that as a trial would really show that a player has mastered the legend. The bottom line here is that I think progression is such an underrated aspect that Apex has overlooked. This keeps players engaged. This keeps players going back for more, even when there may not feel like there's a ton to play the game for. I don't see how it hurts in any way, and ultimately I could only see how it would benefit the game and propel it further. Number 5, consistent game modes added. Mixtape is great, but I think it'd be awesome to rotate in other game modes or even have multiple playlists. For example, COD Modern Warfare 3 has so many different playlists going on, and I bet the player count is comparable, at least in the early days. This will eventually die off as COD's been out longer, but Apex could certainly rotate in more of the LTMs that they've had in the past as a part of this mixtape playlist. Now, I know a lot of you guys have mentioned this, and I think it's a great idea. There would be so many other ways to play Apex besides Control, Gun Run, TDM, and the BR. We just had the 3 Strikes LTM, and that seemed to be a huge hit. So many players enjoyed that game mode, and I think that there's a lot of game modes the player base would enjoy playing if there was an option for them to try out these other game modes. Number 6, more clarity around around Steam keybinds. As it currently stands, this has increasingly become more problematic. In ALGS, these are banned flat out, but for the rest of the player base, which is the 99.99 percentile, this hasn't really been addressed. There are players who are abusing movement techniques on controller and on mouse and keyboard as a result of these Steam keybinds. It's making a lot of movement more accessible, but in this dark, dungeony way. Now, I would love for them to have more clarity on this, and I would just love for some of the movement techniques to just be more accessible so that players can either use them or they can't, but they can just do it through the game. They don't need to alter Steam keybinds in order to achieve this. Now, this is certainly more of a PC thing than a console thing, but it needs to be addressed. Number 7, improving the matchmaking. This is the biggest one that I hear all the time. I obviously experience it myself. I understand it's a very nuanced topic, but just straight up, the 3-stack masters or preds in pubs should 1000% be separated from solo queue players. Even if the player who is solo queuing is a pred or a masters. This has ruined solo queuing for way too many players, especially since the matchmaking typically will pair you with 2 teammates that aren't of your skill and generally have no interest in playing as a team. Once you reach a certain skill level, if you are going to 3-stack, I just think flat out, in order to make this better for the average solo queue player, which a lot of the player base does solo queue, they have to learn to separate this because it's an incredible imbalance going on in the public matchmaking system. Number 8, I would love to see a city map. Now, there have been some rumors that a new map is coming and that it could be a city map. I really hope that is true, as I think some of the best places to fight in Apex are around dense urban areas, places like Fragment, Skyhook, Lava City. Now, that doesn't mean that every single POI has to have a ton of buildings, but it does allow for some interesting gameplay, but it would also allow for some legends that aren't necessarily meta to become more viable in these areas, certainly some of the more defensive legends. So I hope that that map is coming. Number 9. Now, I know the game is probably thinking they have to continuously find ways to make money. I think a better way to approach the monetization system would just be adding more actual heirlooms and no more of these legend prestige skins, at least not at the price that they're offering them for. Some of these legend prestige skins do look cool, but I've never gotten my head around paying for a full collection event in order to unlock that as if it's the same level of value as an heirloom. It doesn't really translate in my head because at the end of the day, it's ultimately just another legendary skin. And there's 3 of them, yes, but you have to just pick one. And maybe they don't do this because it require more employee power to put out more heirlooms, I'm not sure. But I think it would be cool if they don't want to just release all of the heirlooms and have them out for every legend, then start working on a second heirloom for some of the legends that already have one. Now, I obviously think it would be smarter to have all of the legends get one heirloom first, but just recoloring the heirloom, that's not the same thing to me. I think having another item would be actually valuable and cool for the players who do enjoy the heirlooms. Not to mention, when you do get an heirloom, particularly through a collection event, you're also getting 24 other items on top of the heirloom. This would bring more value ultimately to the collection event. Number 10. I'd like to see more uses for the red currency. Currently, as it stands, you can really only buy a new legend or a recolored item, but only 2 items that they constantly rotate in the store. There are so many other recolored items that they sell and the red currency isn't good for. And I totally understand Apex has to make its money to stay alive and do its thing, for sure, I get that. But more use of the red currency would be something that the player base would really enjoy. Number 11, adding a death tracker in mixtape. This is a small feature, but I think it's important. It will show how you're performing well beyond just your kills and your damage. Number 12, 120 FPS for the next gen consoles. There's a lot of players in my comments always talking about this, and I can only imagine how frustrating it might be to only be playing on 59 or 60 FPS when you have a new Xbox or a new PlayStation. I assume this is a complicated technological thing for Apex to achieve, but I do hope it's coming soon for all of you players on the next gen consoles. Number 13, with that said, when 120 FPS does come, I think there should be an ability to turn crossplay off. Now, if they don't want to add this feature, I think that once they make 120 FPS for the next gen consoles, the console aim assist in PC lobbies should be what controller players on PC have for aim assist. So if you don't know, console plays on 0.6 and controller on PC plays on 0.4. I'm not saying that they need to lower the aim assist for console versus console players, but when console players come into PC lobbies, now that they would be having a higher frame rate, it'd only be fair that there is a similar aim assist assist value going on in those lobbies. Having 3 different input intervals going on becomes way too hectic and doesn't really feel that balanced. Oh, and I know that's going to upset a lot of console players, but hear me out. If you haven't played on console and also played on PC to experience the difference in aim assist, then you can't really speak on it too well. You have to try both out and then see what I'm talking about. Number 14, adding more audio cues to horizons while they're floating up and down in the air. Too many times a horizon will silently queue up or fall down from her queue onto my head and I can't hear her, and it's pretty frustrating. They did this with Octane when Octane's jump pad was rather silent, and now you can hear that from very far away. You can even hear Revenant's queue a lot louder than Horizon's, so I would love to see an updated audio file to Horizon's tactical ability when she's flying in the air. Number 15, I would love to see collision with abilities turned off. What I mean by this is when your random teammate walks in front of you and blocks one of your abilities, like a fused knuckle cluster, a catalyst Q, caustic's trap. I mean, any ability that is thrown or placed out can collide with a teammate and screw up where it's supposed to land. I don't really see a way in which this would cause the game to become unbalanced or how a player could break the game with this feature, having it turned off. But I would just love to see it, as it can be incredibly frustrating when random teammates get in your way and then screw up your ability usage, especially if it's with an ultimate, which is on a much longer cooldown theoretically. And lastly, I'm going to throw in a bonus one. Number 16, I would love to have the feature where you could spawn on shields instead of health in the game modes. For some reason, when you spawn in, heal wheel leaves it on health, despite us spawning in with an armor first, whether that's TDM, VR, or even control, doesn't matter. Manually switching it every game is a little wonky, and if you play on mouse and keyboard, you can just create keybinds, but for controller players, you can't. So I would just love this ability. Even if it's a setting feature where you can decide what you want to spawn on, that would be huge. Let me know what you guys think down in the comments. Do you agree, disagree? What else would you add to the game? And if you enjoyed this video, please be sure to check out how to master your game sense with abilities in this video right here. Thanks for watching. Peace.